Hopefully at the end of a sprint review, you have a potentially shippable product increment. And so you may actually ship that product. You might deliver it to your actual end users, whether that's in an alpha, a beta, or actually going live. And there are some activities we need to discuss around that. One is make sure that you are finishing with a potentially shippable product. If things aren't done, make sure you're controlling your source code in a way that you can roll those features out so you don't release untested code. Make sure it is completely to your definition of done as much as possible. You also want to make sure that delivery is a non-event. If you remember us talking about a continuous integration environment, so we make it as easy as possible to deliver this from one environment to the next. If you make that easy as possible, then if somebody says, I'd like to make this go to production, that should be easy to do. No one should have to do any extra work or anything else in the sprint. That's hard to achieve, but it's well worth the investment. I once worked at a company where for 2 years we had been struggling with delivery. Once we revitalized Scrum and adhered to all the values and principles, the 6 months leading up to our actual release, 5 of those we were able to go directly to the product's beta program immediately after the sprint review. So a product owner would say, I like it, can we ship it? And we say, done. And by that afternoon, it was actually at the clients. And we couldn't have done that if we had not been actually creating potentially shippable products the entire time. And the last thing I want to mention is a hardening sprint. I'm going to put that asterisk up there because this is a fairly controversial thing in the Scrum community. But I do think there are cases where it makes sense. The hardening sprint is an anti-pattern. It does mean that we're not getting everything completely to our definition of done inside the sprint. But there are ways to elegantly handle this. You may have large teams with a significant code base that you weren't building with Scrum. It's legacy code base. It's not as easily testable. There's a lot of things that go into deploying it because you don't have that automation in place. And while you need to invest to overcome those impediments, in the meantime, you may have to have something in place. So what you can do is make this hardening sprint only needed as long as you have those things in place. You want to get rid of it as soon as you can. But in the meantime, a hardening sprint is not where you get to come and fix all these bugs you've been shuffling out of one sprint to the next. You still want to be disciplined and make sure you fix all the bugs in a sprint you can. And it's not a list of these critical bugs that escaped. A hardening sprint is more about testing. When you have large legacy code bases that you can't automate the testing, or you have integrations with a lot of other facilities that you can't do in other environments, this is a place to do that. Hopefully there's no new development that goes on in there, only if we discover a critical bug. During a hardening sprint, everybody's hands-on, everybody's testing. When you find that bug, you take it to the product owner. We talk about, is this something critical we can't let go? If it is, we open up that code base, we plan it out, fix it, and then resume with our testing, possibly having to regression test a little bit. In this way, we make sure that we're not actually trying to tidy up. We're just confirming, and that's the hardening part of it. You'll sometimes hear this called a stabilizing sprint. It's the same term. I've used this in the past to great success, and it gave us a pathway to get out of using hardening sprints once we started getting automation and a better handle on our legacy code. The first time we did this, we took all hands on for a 3-week sprint, nothing but testing, with well-orchestrated test plans to lead us through this, scenario-based type test plans as well. When we were done, everything was tested. We had proof that this was the quality we needed, and everybody at that company said, if we had done this in the past with just QA in our old process, it would have taken us 6 months to regression test this. But by having everybody involved, having a very good plan, limiting it to that sprint so that we don't try to test it forever, make a concise plan, we were able to do that same amount of work inside one sprint and make sure we had a quality deliverable. And as we've progressed and done more automated testing and been better about how we are disciplined inside the sprints, we've had less and less need for that. And the hope is that eventually we don't need it at all anymore.